So, Landri, thank you so much for joining us today. The idea of this Q&A is just to hear about your experience and hopefully answer questions students have about the program, about Sydney itself, about the internships. So to start off, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Landry. I go to school at UNC Chapel Hill. I'm majoring in business and psychology, and I did an internship in Sydney, Australia this past summer in like a business development position with City Quaker.
Thank you. I forgot to introduce myself, but just in case, I'm Dani and I work in marketing for SageCore. Thank you for your introduction, Landry. So, why did you decide to intern abroad? How did you find this opportunity with us? And what were the things that made you say, yes, definitely, I want to go abroad and intern with SageCore?
Absolutely. There's like a lot of different factors going into it. Um, like throwing back in time whenever I was kind of in the application process and going like abroad, it was my sophomore spring. And with that, I had just recently changed majors. I was previously doing more on the medical side of stuff, and then I realized I very much was interested in being more on the people side of things. So I kind of switched in my perspective of towards like the business side of more things going on. And so with that, I had not had a lot of previous experience with like interning with anything business related. And so all of those different factors kind of led me to realize I had a lot of classes I needed to take. I also had definitely some lack in experience and skills that I would need for doing like a position that would be at like a very large company at, like in the United States. And so with all these different factors, I realized that like I wouldn't otherwise probably be able to go abroad. And so I ultimately was like, I'm going to try to find something that I'd be able to mix all of the opportunities together. So I was able to find an internship, get a lot of valuable skills I think I otherwise would not have. Working with a startup company, there's a lot of specific things that like you're kind of thrown into a bunch of different tasks. Like you're not like just in a set role of like, oh, they'll give you like some busy work to do. Like I was doing all different things. And so a lot of skills and just a broad experience. I hadn't necessarily been in a country or like lived somewhere else outside of like my home for long periods of time. And so it was definitely a new opportunity that I really appreciated and feel like I grew a lot from.
That, love that for you. And how did you prepare for the internship itself? Like for the interview. What tips did you find helpful when you were getting matched with a startup through a program?
Absolutely. I think definitely when applying with like startups specifically, there's kind of a level of like they also are new to this. They have probably worked in some professional fields before, but like this is a new company for them. So like they're also brand new at this. They have expectations, but it's not like that they have you at like a very high level. They're ready for you to like meet all these like criterias. And so just going in with an open mind and like having the idea that like they're not going to tear you apart. They're not going to be super like upset if you're like, oh, I have no idea to this answer. And just going in and like not stressing out too much. Because really, whenever I did interview, it was like, it was just a very social conversation. I was able to just tell them about like things I did, experience I've had, and it just felt very like informal in a way that like it was very welcoming and kind of the culture in general. Whenever I got to Sydney, that it is very much like the business side is definitely very serious, but they are going to be always very inviting and welcoming to have the different opportunities for you.
Nice. And did you do any internship like interview work with your program manager before going into the interviews themselves?
I believe I did a session or two, just did some basic like behavioral questions and a few like things they might ask me that would be more relevant to my role specifically.
Okay. And did you feel that helped you in any way in the preparation as well?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the behavioral questions, once you start doing a lot of different interviews, which I've been doing this past fall, and I kind of realized that like they kind of become repetitive at a certain point. Like there's limited things that people can ask you. So just having a general idea of like how to pitch yourself, what your experiences are, skills, things you're interested in, are very helpful information to help have and do before interview.
Definitely. And more of like the of going abroad. How did you feel before doing that leap? How did you prepare yourself? Is there anything you maybe had wished before going abroad? You went quite far. You went to Sydney, so it was like a big, big jump. So any things you did in particular to get in the mindset, and how were the feelings? Nervous, excited? What was going on before?
I think a mix of nerve and excited was definitely the emotions I was feeling. I really hadn't been that far before. I hadn't been to Australia or anywhere on that side of the globe. And so that aspect definitely stressed me out a little bit. Just like it definitely helped going through stage groups to go abroad in an area like that, just because they were able to help me with flights. They were able to help me coordinate with other interns, figure out like what visas I needed, like where I'd be staying, all the different details that like otherwise it's kind of difficult, especially to communicate with the time zone difference and like calling people in Australia to figure it out. And so that aspect was really helpful. I think that I still am definitely more of an anxious person. So I was always trying to think of like, oh, what else do I need to do? And so with that, like I tried to do a lot of research before I went of like great food places to go to, places we potentially could go visit once we got there. Just like different things that like were bucket list items for a lot of people. I was like, I don't know, like I want to go see the opera house, like some stuff that like everyone knows of, but just no one to make a list of it.
Definitely. And I remember in your ambassador application, so for people watching this, we have an ambassador program for alum, and Landry applied, and she's actually one of our ambassadors. But I remember that you mentioned something around you felt pretty safe going abroad as a woman on your own through SageCore. So maybe you can expand a little bit on that. I know for women, and I can share that feeling, sometimes traveling on your own can feel a little bit intimidating. So how do you feel going through SageCore helped you with this?
Absolutely. I think that having that group of other students that were going to be there with me, number one was the first thing that I feel like helped me because I was staying with these people. I was able to go like travel with them, go have food. Like it was a group that I automatically could just go rely on, like if I needed someone to be around me. And then also just having we had kind of like meetings when we first got there of like safety, of like kind of cultural things that we should be aware of. That definitely helped me. It kind of helped us immerse into the culture a lot more and a lot quicker, instead of just being like tourists essentially and walking around the city acting like we're just Americans in another country. So I think a mix of those two definitely helped a lot.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And let's talk more about your internship. So you interned, as you mentioned, in City Kuoka. Can you tell us about what they do? Think about more of an elevator pitch of the startup, and then also
Absolutely.
if you
So
could,
City Quaker, oh,
sorry,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
So City Quaker is a mix of like ClassPass and Uber Eats, if you can imagine that. It's like a deal-driven city guide. Essentially, it's helping you find the best opportunity in something that would match very specific demographics that you fill out with the different app and website. So you just share things that you like. I enjoy this type of food. I enjoy like going on hikes. I enjoy like going to the movies. Very specific questions, goes in depth with things that you potentially would like, kind of ranks them, and then gives you I think that we kind of limited it down to like 3 deals a week. And so you get these deals and it's opportunities. They will give you like a percentage off of it, or it's like this is a free activity you could do. And so it's very targeted to you specifically. And sometimes there are things you do as a group, things as individuals, just in general, helping people explore the city a little bit better. And just like at least for me, I'm from North Carolina and I've always lived here. So like there's definitely some like tourist attraction things that I've never visited just because like I'm from here. I like wouldn't have thought of it, but like this is like an opportunity to give the locals some aspects to go see things that people come and see all the time.
Nice. And can you tell us more about what you did in your internship? What were your major projects? What did you work on throughout the summer?
Absolutely. So kind of how I talked about before, since it is a startup company, I like helped in a lot of different aspects. That was definitely a lot of things that helped me like grow a lot of skills. But some specific things I did help with was I created the social media accounts for them, the Instagram and TikTok. We were able to get a lot of followers before I left and like start posting content. And then I was helping with B2B sales. So we were directly talking with businesses, trying to get them on board to our company while I was there. So I was going with the owner or the founder, and we were going to the business directly, pitching our sales idea. And we were able to get close to like 35 people signed on during the time period I was there for like business aspects. So that was very significant for the company. And then I was able to help a little bit more with like some UX design, more of just kind of like the layout of what the app would look like, what the web page would look like, just kind of in general, like from a consumer side point of view. Like I hadn't had any experience in like UX, UI, any of that stuff before. So it was definitely a new experience. And I definitely was more of like a side player in that aspect. And I had another intern that was doing more of the computer sides of stuff.
And was it another intern from SageCore as well?
It was, yes.
Nice. So you got to go together to work. That's great.
Yes.
And were you a small team? How many people were in the team? Did you work directly with the founder? How was this experience for you?
Absolutely. So it was me, the other intern, and the founder was the main core group. We had his wife came in occasionally. She had a different job, so she would like come whenever she had free time. And then we had one person, we kind of like subcontracted people in. So we had someone that was helping with like the kind of like the design of the company, like the logos, the colors, like that aspect. So we had someone come in for that. We had someone for like the coding. We had another person just kind of in general, like helping like manage. And he was more of like a project manager, in sense, but he had a lot more like skills and thoughts on like the computer aspects of things. So we definitely had like probably close to 10 in total people working on the project, but the core group was me and the other intern and the founder.
Okay, great. And how did it feel working with a startup founder? Did you gain any insights from, starting their own company? Were you able to use that networking experience in your favor?
Absolutely. I think that it definitely was a unique aspect because I hadn't previously worked with a company that was so small. And so with that, there was a lot of different thought process I hadn't thought of. Like you're working with a person that like this is their like project. This is what they've been working on for a really long time. And so like that passion, that drive behind it definitely like drove me and the other intern to be more interested in like helping succeed basically for this company because he was so passionate about it. Um, and then, like network wise, I think that it definitely was really helpful because he knew a lot of the other startup companies that were in our startup hub. So we were able to kind of network with those companies. But overall, I was able to have a great experience with just meeting new people through him and also just like having the vibrance of like this is something that he's really passionate about.
Definitely. I love that. Love to hear that. And so you were in a startup hub. Can you mention more about that? I think it was called UTS, right?
Yes, it was at UTS University, or like that's the university in Sydney, or one of the universities in Sydney. And so we essentially had like there was two different office buildings, I believe, that were full of basically startup companies. And so we would have like reserve a desk, and so there would be like I would say on each floor, probably like anywhere from like 8 to 10 different companies. And so there's multiple different floors in this building. There's a whole nother building. So a lot of different companies, a lot of different aspects. There's people doing like girls on the run essentially kind of companies. There's people doing like things like us. So with that side of we were able to be exposed to a lot of different things. And just kind of in general, like the vibe kind of in the place was very much like people really interested about what they were doing and wanting to like have their company succeed. So that definitely boosted us to be really
Definitely
enthusiastic.
feels like it was a very inspiring environment for you guys, which I love.
Hmm.
Can you talk more about your first day? I guess, a lot of interns can get first day jitters. You're in a new city. For many of them, it's their first internship. So how did this go about? Who did you meet in your first day of work? Not like in the city. I know the one in the city is different. So how was this day for you?
I would say definitely don't stress about the first day. The first day obviously probably is a little bit different for each company, but for our company, we went in, we just really met the founder, his wife. We went to lunch, kind of talked about like our own personal like goals in life and like what we wanted to do after like this internship and like how we specifically would be able to help him, help ourselves, and just help grow like the company. So it was very much like an informal kind of meet and greet. There was not really like a lot of expectations for work for the first day, and it was just like trying to figure out like how best we could all work together as a team.
Nice. And how did you normally go to work? Did you use public transportation? What was the transportation like?
Yeah, absolutely. So our hotel we were staying in was probably about a 10-minute walk from the train station. So we'd normally walk to the train station, take the train down to like the UTS, like or the university area, and then we'd walk. It was probably like 5, 10 minutes from there. So generally, it was like probably about a 30-minute commute, but most of the way it was like on the train.
Okay, great. And what was your day-to-day like in the city? We get a lot of questions from students of like, what's a day-to-day in work, but then also what happens after work? Do students have time to explore the city or, join a gym or like what does the week look like?
Absolutely. So our week, I worked. I believe like 9 to 5 hours. So we had like definitely some time in the morning, and definitely time after. So in the mornings, normally me and my roommate, there was a Pilates studio really close by that we got like a 2 month membership for. So we go work out in the mornings, get some breakfast, go like get ready for work and then go to work. And then I normally have like about a 1 hour lunch break. So during that time, I'd be able to walk around like the university area, get some food, and then just work until about 5. And at that point, like sometimes there was activities that were hosted by Sage Corps. Sometimes it was like the group wanted to go do something. Sometimes we just went and go like just got dinner, like me and my roommate. And then sometimes I also had like some personal stuff that I was working on I was applying to our business school at my university. So during that time, I was also doing some like at home work. So I stayed sometimes at the university and would work late on my application process. So there was definitely time to do plenty of things. And I definitely had like a lot of things that I was trying to balance all at once. So I had still plenty of time to be social and explore. And we even did like 2 different weekends. We traveled to like different cities on the east coast of Australia. So
Nice. And where did you go? Where did you guys travel? Did you travel with a lot of people in your cohort, or was it more like small groups?
yeah. So one weekend, me and my roommate went down to Melbourne. That was just the two of us. It was honestly very similar to Sydney, so it was not like too much different. There's just definitely like a little bit different culture. And then we went up to Cairns, which is kind of where the Great Barrier Reef is, and we did like a snorkeling kind of excursions and stuff like that. That was actually with the entire group. It was not necessarily through Stage Corps, but we like all planned as soon as we got there. We are like, we want to go to the Great Barrier Reef, so we all just decided that we were in book like a big hotel or big, I want to say Airbnb together, and we just all flew down there for one weekend.
That is so fun that the whole cohort went together to the Great Barrier Reef. That's incredible. And you also mentioned the Sage Core events. Can you tell us about maybe your favorite one that yeah, you enjoyed the most?
I always liked it whenever we would go get food because I feel like they always had the best food recommendations since they lived in the city. But I also like the Opera House tour. We went and walked through some of the gardens. We went to a few different of the beaches. I think we went surfing at Bondi Beach. That was a lot of fun. And we also went on a Manly Beach trip, which is like kind of more north, if I'm remembering correctly on the map. But all of the events were a lot of fun. They just definitely were more like they understood the local aspects and like what would be best for us to see while we were there. So I enjoyed that aspect.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. And overall, what do you think is the best part of the SageCore internship, especially since it spans the whole summer? What were the most valuable things you took away from the experience?
I think definitely working in a startup company with basically like it was almost like an accelerator program of like building as many skills as you possibly could. And so with that, just because you're thrown into like a bunch of different aspects, that was definitely a really strong part for me. I think being abroad with a bunch of people that like are from the United States, but like I had previously interacted with, that part was also a lot of fun because we still have like some communication now and then, and like I actually texted one of the people that was in my group because his family lives in Texas, and I was like, hey, yeah, like I may be in Texas this summer, like any recommendations? So like we still were able to have that communication and aspects. So I would say it's just a lot of different things that kind of made it such a good internship.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. If anyone has any questions, or Hannah, if you have any other ideas of questions, you can ask away right now to Landry. Before other questions, I want to ask you if you can do an elevator pitch for Sydney. Why would you recommend Sydney? Let's think there's a student in the pipeline and they're torn in the cities that are available. Why would you say Sydney is a must?
And definitely for people that are from the United States, I would say Sydney is honestly an experience that unless I specifically planned it, it's so much harder to access than like going to Europe or going to like South Af or South America or something like that. That like this is something that like it kind of gives you an opportunity that you probably otherwise wouldn't have until maybe later in life, unless like you like specifically plan that in your schedule. And so Sydney's definitely an experience that I think that it's very much like a American city in the terms of like they speak English, but is the culture is a lot different. So the culture was just very inviting. There was a lot of people that just wanted to like basically figure out like why a lot of people were really intrigued, honestly, about America and like just we talked like politics with my boss a lot and like things like that, like that like were taboo to talk about America, but like they're just so intrigued by like what we would do and like why we acted certain ways and stuff. So it was just fun to be like in a city that like it is kind of like you feel at home, but you're also on the other side of the world.
Mhm. Definitely. And can you talk more about, the spare time? Like what activities did you enjoy doing in Sydney? What are like some fun things students can enjoy if they join our program in this city?
Absolutely. Definitely exploring the city. There's a lot of things going on. Thinking about like going to Sydney when during our summertime is their winter time. So it's a time that you can explore without like having too many tourists going on. We went to Bondi Beach. We were the only ones there. So like this is a time frame that like it is normally so packed and crowded. It gives you the opportunity to like experience these like big monumental like bucket list items without having the crowds of like everyone else around you. And I wouldn't say it's like any different than going to like Florida during the winter time. Like it's not cold or anything. So it's definitely something that like exposes you to a level that like you otherwise probably wouldn't have been.
That is such a great selling point. Like you just sold me on going to Sydney on US summer. Just getting clear of tourists is amazing. We're getting a question here from Rosa. Did you receive any funding for your internship or receive a stipend from your internship?
I personally did. I think that most of the people in my cohort did, from my understanding. It definitely didn't fully cover like the cost of like travel and like hotel and stuff like that. But I think that I was able to like outweigh with the amount of skills and things I was able to bring home, to like apply for future jobs and stuff like that.
Hmm, thank you. Any other questions? Hannah, do you have any other questions?
One question I would ask Landry, if she doesn't mind sharing, is what are you doing this coming summer? Do you have plans or do you know? Are you looking for internships or jobs right now? And tell us about that.
Yeah, so this summer I will actually be working in Austin with a company called CrowdStrike, and I will be doing global sales with them. So it honestly is a perfect opportunity for me because I am always super cold. So I was like, I would love to go to Texas. And with that, I am very excited to just like have that aspect of working. Like it's supposed to be a very small team I'm working with, and hopefully be able to grow like into further in the global sales aspects.
And do you feel that in this whole, first of all, congratulations, very exciting
Thank
for you. Second, do you feel in the whole process of, applying and going through interviews for this coming summer, do you feel that the Sage Core experience helped you somehow? Has your internship come up? All the skills that you learned? Can you share a little bit of that?
Absolutely. I would say there was not a single interview that I can think of that I didn't bring up something I did this past summer. It was definitely really important whenever I was talking about like skills and like experiences and why I'd be a good fit for a position. I definitely had like a lot of applications and interviews that I had done probably in the past like 6 months. And with all of those, there was not a time that I didn't bring up like being abroad and interning in Sydney.
Definitely. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hannah or Rosa, any other questions you would like to ask Landry before we close the session? Let me see if I find any other recurring questions.
This is a little bit of a not necessarily about the work and while you're there, but kind of like almost like a personal question. Was it hard staying connected with family and friends back home with the time difference or anything like that? And it's always a little bit funny, like their mornings is, your evenings type things. So
I will say it definitely was interesting because I was applying for our business school while I was abroad. I was trying to do like practice interviews. I was speaking with some mentors, speaking with some kind of connections with other companies that I had been like networking with a little bit. And so with that, I did kind of have to adjust my schedule a little bit for like more the professional side. For family side, I would just call them normally like on the weekends whenever like we both didn't have a lot going on. For the professional side, I definitely did find myself sometimes having to like sacrifice some sleep to be able to like call it like 1 in the morning and do an interview or something. But I think in the end it really was not that significant that like I felt like it was really hard to manage the time zone.
And talking about relationships, how have you stayed close with your friends from your cohort? How was that cohort bonding? Like, did you feel that it became like a little family, or like how did it feel for you?
It definitely was like when we were there, it was definitely the like core people I was hanging out with. I think since we've gotten back, just because like people are all the way from like UCLA to like the East Coast, like there's a lot of different like distances, time zones again. It's definitely been harder to keep in contact with everyone, but we definitely have like we follow each other on Instagram, we have group chats and stuff. Like it's definitely like not crazy if like someone was needing to reach out or something.
Nice. I love that. I love that aspect of these our program because it's you get all of, the global experience, hands-on experience. You're going abroad, but then you're also making friends you otherwise wouldn't have met, which I feel is also very valuable. Um, so since we don't have any other questions, I think we can finish now. Thank you so much for your time, Landry. We really appreciate it. If anyone wants to get in touch with Landry and ask her more questions, you can go onto her website, sagecore.com/alum, was it, Hannah? I'm blanking right now. Um, but yeah, you can talk to Landry or any other of our ambassadors that were in different cities. We also mentioned what their internship role type was in case you want to ask more about the internship itself. Or you can just contact us at campusrelations@sagecore.com if you have any questions, and we will be glad to help you. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of the day.